Hello and welcome to another episode of Tony's Forest of SNES. For the second episode, I want to talk about Lagoon. Lagoon is a game released on the Super Nintendo, and before that on a computer not really known here in the United States or Canada, called the Sharp X68000. I want to talk about Lagoon because this game I really enjoyed when I was younger. I know a lot of people would say, oh, it has a short sword and oh, it's not a really good game, but for me, it was great. Yes, it had problems, but as soon as you knew how to play the game properly, the game became really fun. So before I start playing the game, let's take a quick look at the story in the background of the game. Lagoon is an action role-playing game that was developed in 1991 by a Japanese company called Zoom. They started making games on the Sharp X68000 and then moved on to more recent generation of consoles. Their most notable games are the Genocide games that are mech side-scrolling platformers, the fighting games Zero Divide, which have excellent music, and they are also the creators of Phalanx, a shooter that has been ported to the SNES. So for us here in North America, Lagoon was brought over and saw a release on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The box description says, Lakeland has a drinking problem. It sounds strange, I know, and it also says breathtaking 16-bit backdrops and 3D creatures. While I am still trying to find these, let's remember that this is an early release in the life of the Super Nintendo, being released in '91. The SNES version is not a direct port of the X68000. It has enough small changes. For example, the music is different. While it is all generated by the sound engine on the SNES, the Sharp version had real musicians to compose the soundtrack. The band is called the Zoom Reversible Band, and they use a whole bunch of different synthesizers to compose the soundtrack. The X68000 could also output MIDI music with compatible MIDI models. Some other differences I will mention later in this review. The introductions are not the same in each version. Here is the intro sequence of the Sharp X68000. This version's introduction has way more cutscenes than the Super Nintendo one. Let's take a look at both of them. You are Nazir, born to be the champion of life. Long ago, to guarantee the balance of good and evil, the gods brought two babies to the land, one of life and one of darkness. But before the sage Matthias could reach out to grasp the two children, the evil warlock Zera appeared and stole the child of darkness. 14 years later, Nazir will have to face great battles along the way to find out what evil force possesses and fouls the water of Lakeland and discover the mysteries of the Lagoon Castle. Your quest now begins in the village of Atlan. So we start the adventure in Atlan. After doing the usual RPG speak with everybody thing, you get out of the village and get to the first level, the Gold Cave. The first thing you'll notice, and for some people that will maybe make it a last, is that it's hard to defeat a monster without getting hit. And that small sword? Let's just pretend it is a knife, okay? Okay, so I'll just try hitting the enemy. Come on, why am I not hitting it? Okay, there you go. Then, oh wow, I'm always getting hit. And now, come on, it's the second enemy. The trick is not to rush into monsters to try hitting them. Position yourself in front of it, and because of your shield, they will constantly bounce off. Then you just time your hits properly. It's not hard, and it's fun. You will eventually get to the first boss, if you haven't quit yet. If you did, well, that's a shame because the bosses are the biggest challenge in Lagoon, and the fun is just about to kick off for real. One thing that makes the bosses difficult to beat is that you cannot use magic in here. You can only use rings. I'll explain it all in a bit. But not being able to use magic makes it a one-on-one combat, and therefore, not getting hit is almost impossible, at least for me. After a lot of bottom mashing, I finally defeat this baddie and receive the Fire Crystal.
So far, the game is really straightforward. My God, that beard is growing so fast. Anyway, okay, so magic. Let me give you a simple explanation of how magic works in Lagoon. First, you're going to need a staff. Then, you're going to need a crystal. When you combine the two, it gives you a possibility of 16 spells you can cast. So let's say I combine the Fire Crystal with the Earth Staff. That is going to give me a Fireball. If I combine the Fire Crystal with the Moon Staff, it gives me a big Fire Dragon. So if you have problems fighting enemies with the short sword, you now have a possibility of shooting projectiles with magic. That's a good thing.
There is also magic rings that give special abilities when equipped. They really come in handy when fighting bosses. If you need a quick strength upgrade to get rid of a tough boss, use a power ring. If you need temporary invincibility, use a defensive ring. Protective ring gives an extra 30 defense points, Curing ring fills up your HP, and the time ring slows down monsters. All these rings will work as long as you have magic points. Most of the time, you won't need them for regular monsters, but they are a lifesaver for bosses.
So at one point we arrived to a place called Philip's Castle. Did I mention that the music is really good in that game? Well, I heard that song before and it got stuck in my head for so long. You know, the kind of the bass starting like that. Ding 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 ding
This is an old advertisement page that appeared in various game magazines. Looks like they really stuck hard with the fact that there is a problem with the water. An old sage and philosopher once said, "Lagoon is such a simple generic action RPG game that it is what makes it stand out." It may not have been the best in its genre when it came out in 1991, having so many top-quality RPGs to choose from at the time. But today, its simplicity gives it a retro charm that many nostalgics like myself are searching for. Now, let's jump to Phantom Hill. Now, when we arrive to Phantom Hill, we are at about 2/3 in the game, but the biggest challenges are yet to come. An absolutely necessary feature that, thank God, the developers thought of putting in the game is the ability to save at any time. You see, bosses can become a real frustration after dying many times, and you will die many times, believe me. So just before you enter the boss's chamber, save the game so that you don't have to make it all the way up to the boss again. And if you entered the room not knowing it is the boss, you can get out if you like at most of them. One good tip I can give you that applies to pretty much all of the bosses is to jump to avoid their projectiles. I played the game all the way through not knowing that, and it made the game much more difficult for me. After Phantom Hill, you will climb your way up to the clouds. You must execute your jumps with precision because collision detection is not the best in Lagoon. If you jump a little bit too far, you fall. A little too soon and you won't make it to the other side. Now it may not look like it, but you must jump on the island back there. I thought it was just a decoration at first, as a jump like that would be fatal. Some more nice cutscenes and it is finally there. Lagoon Castle. I want to say thanks to Europia, who made this great website with a lot of information about Lagoon, like maps for every single place in the game, items, magic, and much more. Go check it out! Now, that is all for this episode. Thanks for watching.